Excellent. And we are back live. Wonderful. There are not that many of these left to do for this specific class simply because we have our exam so early in the exam schedule. Because with the technically 2 weeks of exams, we have the very first day. Our final exam will be this upcoming Monday, June 7th. Which gives us about 6 days to get that thing going. Again, I could turn the camera right here just so the people in the live stream can see it. This is today, and then here's our exam. Yay! Like I said, on the 9th and on the 11th, even though, we don't have the final exam, we don't really have anything specific to do, I still will have to do an attendance, especially for those who are virtual. So please stay tuned for that. I will figure out how to do that. And then on Monday the 7th, obviously, we will be knocking out the final exam in real time. So for those of you that are virtual, you will need to be present to get a copy of that exam, because then I will be taking it down from the Google Classroom. I'm not going to leave this to be like an open-ended assignment. It needs to be completed within that exam period. So please keep that in mind, those of you who are online. And of course, if you would be so kind to leave a comment in the chat, that would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay. My goal for today is pretty straightforward. I'm going to be posting a PDF in a few minutes. For those of you that are with me here today, I do have a physical packet paper that I want to do. This is the first review that I want to do with you guys, kind of covering the first major parts of this particular class, mainly voting methods, weighted voting methods, things of that nature. I want to focus on some of those things because it's been a few months since we've seen them. And of course, they will be a part of this final exam. We will review today. We will review on Thursday. And then, well, basically, that's the review. And then we'll take the test on Monday. So my goal is to basically work through this with you guys till approximately 8:20-ish, 8:20-ish. The class period goes to about 8:43. But I want to make sure that you do have that extra time at the end to either work on other things that are owed to me. Because again, a lot of these assignments that I have in Google Classroom, just looking at them right now, some of them are still a little outstanding. Not to mention, there is a quizzes that I assigned last week that I gave everybody 3 attempts to get done. A few of you have gotten it done so far. But that is not actually due until, I believe, tomorrow. So I want to make sure that I do this review till about 8:20-ish. And then we will take that rest of the time to kind of pick up and catch up on things that we may be missing. So let me get this to you guys. And for you guys that are online, I am going to be posting the PDF of this thing in a few moments. Let me just get to my Google Classroom right here. Here we go. Click, 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 click. Add the file. Not that one. There we go. Final and that one. There we go. Review for today. Post. And it is posted. So this PDF right here, I already have it open right here. But this PDF is available for those of you that are online. That would be fantastic. So actually, let me do this first. I'm going to go a little bit back and forth between the down camera. Where's my X? Oh, I left it up there. I'm going to go back and forth between the down camera and the PDF that's on the screen. I think it'd be a lot nicer and easier to kind of do this. But again, for those of you that are online, if you do have a question, please make sure you're posting them in the chat. I will have the chat open on my phone. That'd be fantastic. And let's see what we can recall from earlier on in this school year. When you guys came in February, seems like a million years ago, February. But February was about Goodness gracious, that was like 4 months ago. Gracious, my word. Anyway, we started with voting methods and the best way to possibly select a potential winner of an election. Just as a side note, even though it's an off-year election, it's 2021, it's an off-year election, that doesn't mean that there aren't still some really big votes coming up this fall. We are going to be voting for the governor of New Jersey again this fall. There are a bunch of primaries coming up. You've probably seen the signs all over Barnegat. It's pretty nuts. But anyway, I digress. Where's my little red pen? There you are. I'm looking at the first set of problems. The management of XYZ Corporation has decided to treat their office staff to dinner. The staff are asked to vote amongst 4 restaurants, A, B, C, and D. The results of the election are shown in the preference schedule. For you guys that I just saw the comments pop up, I'll just give you a very brief rundown. We are reviewing for the final exam, which is Monday. I'm going to be reviewing up until about 8:20, and then I'm going to give you guys the rest of the time to kind of pick up whatever is missing from my class, especially there's a quizzes that is due tomorrow. This PDF is available to you through the Google Classroom. So let's see. Now, these people voted on what the choice for restaurants would be. Obviously, there's not a lot of information given in terms of what restaurant it is, but based on this preference schedule, we can answer basically everything that they're throwing at us. They ask, first of all, well, how many office staff voted in the election? Looking at this column again, just a reminder. 5 people decided to vote in the order of A, B, C, D. That is the preference that they chose. 5 people. 1 person voted this way, 4 people voted this way, 3 people voted this way. That is how the preference schedule gives information. As a result, it shouldn't be much of a shock to be like, oh, 13. Oh, my pen's out of ink. What in the world? Silly pen doing things that you shouldn't do. All right. I'm going to use my other pen then. Here we go. But yeah, it should be 13. And it is. There we go. This thing, man. Anyway. Because, well, 5 plus 1 plus 4 plus 3. There's 13 people participating. How many first plates are needed for a majority? Now, this is important, though. If you had 12 people voting, if you had 12 people, 6 would not give you a majority. It would not give you a definitive majority. Because in order to have a majority, you have to have 50% plus 1. You have to have just more than 50% of the vote. How many first place votes are needed for a majority? In this particular instance, you do need 7. You absolutely need 7. If one restaurant gets 7 votes, there's no way any other restaurant could catch them. Because, well, 7, that would be it. The rest would be 6. But then they ask the question, which restaurant is the winner by plurality? Plurality is just who got the most first place votes. Not, again, doesn't have to be a majority, but just who had the most first place votes. And in this case, it may be, people may instinctively be like, well, it's A. No, it's not actually A. It's actually C. C received 4 first place votes in this column and 3 first place votes in this column. C is the winner by plurality, whatever the name of that particular restaurant is. If you were to just tally the first place votes, I'm just going to do that right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Here we go. If you were to just tally the first place votes for A, B, C, and D, A clearly got 5, B clearly got 1, but then because of these 2 columns, C got 7 and D got 0. Sucks to be D. Number 4, is the winner a majority candidate or a plurality candidate? In this particular instance, the winner is a majority candidate. The winner is a majority candidate because they received the minimum number of majority votes, or the minimum number of votes in order to attain a majority, let's just say. But yeah, I'm not going to write that sentence out, but that's basically what you could say. Is the winner majority or plurality? Well, majority, because because they received more than half of the vote. Has to be more than half. When it comes to presidential elections, and I just want to bring up one up here on the board. Let's go to the 1992 election. President election wiki. This is part of the reason why they do the Electoral College. If you look at the 1992 election, and you look at these percentages right at the bottom right here, I highlighted them at the bottom. Bill Clinton clearly won the 1992 election. He won with 43% of the vote. That is clearly not a majority. It's a plurality. And, whatever one's opinions are on pluralities, it's like that's a really low percentage. It's actually one of the lowest of the past 100 years to win the presidency. But that is not how we vote for president. We don't vote one vote, one person per se. We vote on the Electoral College. And that is why it is 270 to win. There's a website that literally is called 270 to win. Because if you receive 270 electoral votes, that is precisely just more than 50% of the electoral votes available. The Electoral College does allow for a majority candidate to win, but then often as not, the one vote, one person system obviously doesn't always end up being what people want it to be. President election, bringing this back up here, and then I'll compare it to 2020. But again, you look back at 2016, you can see that clearly neither candidates had over 50%. In fact, Hillary Clinton had about 2.1% more votes. But if anybody wants to dispute the 2020 election, if you look at the 2020 election results, clearly Joe Biden received over 51% of the votes. So that was a majority candidate in terms of the number of total votes. I love looking at this stuff. It's fun. Back to this. Now, there's the number 5. I don't know. I was a cut and paste job here, so there are some numbers missing. But number 6 on that page, explain how a Condorcet candidate is determined. Explain how a Condorcet candidate is determined. Now, in order for me to do that, I'm going to actually go to this screen right here. I'm going to go to this screen. Talk about Condorcet candidate. Again, this is your review. This is stuff that we've been taught in the past, but I want to make sure that I show exactly what a Condorcet candidate is. First of all, when you're talking Condorcet candidate, you are talking head-to-head matchups. If you're talking Condorcet, you are talking head-to-head matchups. Basically, each candidate is put on a one-on-one against everybody else. And if you win every single head-to-head matchup, if you can win every single head-to-head matchup, then you are a Condorcet candidate. You have to win every head-to-head matchup. So, for example, here's my marker. Let me do A versus B. If I'm doing A versus B, A wins 5 votes here, and then B wins, B wins, B wins. I'm just comparing A versus B. So in this case, B wins 8-5. B wins that one, 8-5. Let's do A versus C. A versus C. Oh, C wins here, C wins here, C wins here. Same result, 8-5. Clearly, A is not going to be a Condorcet candidate, but let's just see what happens. A versus D, because you have to do every head-to-head matchup. Oh, here we go. A wins this one, and A wins this one. That's 9-4. 9-4, A wins that matchup. Again, I got to do every head-to-head matchup. So B versus C. B wins, B wins, C wins, C wins. Okay, so C wins 7 of those votes versus B 6. B versus D, BD, BD, B. Oh, wow. B wins every single one of those. So that's 13-0. And then finally, C versus D. If you just go through it systematically, you can figure out exactly what's going on here. But C wins here, here, and here. So that's 12-1. The question then becomes, is there a Condorcet candidate? Yes, there is. It is Restaurant C. Restaurant C. Restaurant C won every single head-to-head matchup. Should make sense. They did end up with a majority of first place votes, so that does happen. But the question was, if I flip back over here, explain how a Condorcet candidate is determined. Well, you have to look at all of the head-to-head matchups. Oh, man, I already did it. Look at me. Okay, full confession, I didn't look at the bottom half of this page. I literally did not look at the bottom half of this page. And looking at the bottom half of this page, it's asking you to do literally what I just wrote on the board. That's nuts. I did not think that would actually happen, but it did. Good for me. But anyway, yeah, explain how a Condorcet candidate is determined. If one candidate wins all head-to-head matchups, they are a Condorcet candidate. They ask, is there a Condorcet candidate? Yes, there is. It's Restaurant C. But the table that I have on the paper is basically those numbers that are written on the board right there. You compare every head-to-head matchup. And then if one restaurant wins all of them, then there they go. Obviously, head-to-head matchups aren't typically what people do in order to determine votes, but head-to-head matchups are typically done in sporting events, per se. In particular, the most famous of which is probably the World Cup, where teams are placed into groups of 4, and then they all play each other once, earning points for every win or draw, and then the top couple of teams then move on to what they call the knockout round, the final round of 16 in the World Cup. It's a very interesting process, but that's probably one of the more famous examples of head-to-head matchups. Crazy. I'm trying to think if there are other ones besides like sports. I'm just going to Google it real quick. I just want to see. Head-to-head matchup, non-sport. Head-to-head bets. No, I'm basically getting like betting and gambling websites. What if I do minus sports? So minus sport. Nope, still getting it because they just don't use the word sport. All right, I'll have to research that more. That's really interesting to me. I'd just like to see if there are any like real life examples of head-to-head matchups that are not including sports. All right, I'm on the second page. I'm on the second page. They're talking about the principal now at an elementary school. Retiring, and the school board must hire a new principal. The 4 finalists are Amaro, Burr, Castro, Dunbar, ABCD. After interviewing the 4 finalists, each of the 11 board members ranks the candidate by means of a preference ballot. And you can see that in the little ballot right here, the preference ballot. 6, 2, and 3, there are 11 board members that are voting on this particular ballot. Well, how many board members voted in this election? Clearly, it just says 11. I'm just going to write an 11. There we go. How many first place votes are needed for a majority? Well, 6 in this case. You will need 6 to get a majority. There are 11 people voting. Obviously, if there were 12 people voting, you would need 7. If there were 12 people voting, you would need 7, because with 12 people voting, it could end up in a 6-6 tie. That can't happen for a majority. Which candidate is the winner using plurality? Well, plurality, it has to be A. A is clearly the winner using plurality. A has 6 first place votes, exactly the number needed for a majority, but plurality as well in that case. One could say that every majority is a plurality, but not every plurality is a majority. Is the winner majority candidate? Yes. Explain. I'm just going to draw a little arrow here. Like right there. They got that many votes. Well, I could also draw an arrow here. There we go. But yeah, clearly they are. But this table is set up in such a way where something interesting is about to happen. Something very interesting is about to happen. Yes, candidate A, Amaro. Amaro got a majority of first place votes, over 50% of that vote. In fact, I'm just going to do a little quick division right here. There we go. Amaro received 54.5% of the vote. Over 50% of that school board voted for Amaro. But let's see what happens when we do number 5. Board account. It says to complete the table by calculating the board of point totals for each candidate. Now, just for the sake of argument, typically, this is not always the case, but typically, if you're doing board account, you receive 1 point for a last place vote, 2 points for a second to last place vote, so on, working your way up. I put second, but points, and then points. Basically, there are 4 candidates, so you could say 4 points for first, 3 points for second, 2 points for third, 1 point for last. Hopefully, a lot of this information is coming back to you. Board account was probably one of the more intuitive voting methods. People tend to like it more. Every year when I do, whatever in the third marking period, I should say, whenever I do a project using voting, people tend to like the board account more than anything, just because it's just like, oh yeah, it gives, it does its job. But something strange is going to happen here. I already set up candidate A. I already set up candidate A's point totals for you, where we multiply. Well, candidate A had 6 first place votes. And, well, for the other 2 ballots, it had last place votes. Altogether, it's 29 points. Candidate A had 29 points. What does that mean for everybody else? If you work through, let's say for candidate B, 6 of those ballots were second place votes. 2 of the ballots were first place votes. And 3 of the ballots were third place votes. If we do that calculation correctly, I'm going to zoom in on that. There we go. That should be what, 18 plus 8 plus 6. 32. Now, all of a sudden, candidate A, Amaro, had a majority, had more than 50% of the vote, yet board account already, she's lost. Let's see what happens for candidate C. Candidate C had 6 third place votes, 2 second place votes, and 3 first place votes. We do that calculation. Oh, it's like 12 and 24, 24 and 6. This is 30. Adds up to 30 points. Again, one of these situations where this candidate, Amaro, A, has been surpassed yet again. Let's see what happens for candidate D. Candidate D had 6 last place votes, had 2 third place votes, and had 3 second place votes. 9 and 6 is 15 and 4 is 19. Yeah, that's really low. That's 19 points. Clearly, D is not anybody's choice. But the question is, which candidate is the winner using the board account? It's Burr. It's candidate Burr, candidate B. And it really is messed up, but something like this could happen in real life, where if the decision was to go with the board account, for determining who would be the new principal of the elementary school, one candidate could receive a majority, but then end up losing the election because they decided to go with the board account for selecting the winner. It absolutely could happen. It probably has happened. I don't doubt that it could have happened. I know that, and again, I relate this to like sports because I know that this happens a lot in sports. They vote on season-ending awards based on a board account system. The point totals are not exactly what these point totals are. Like these point totals, 4, 3, 2, 1 are very basic. But I know that they vote for, let's say, like the MVP of the league based on this board account system. In fact, let me just look up last year's one. NBA MVP vote. See if I can find it here. Okay, well, here's last year's. They don't give the individual vote totals. All they're really giving me right here are points won. So I can zoom in on that right there. Here we go. There's the column right there. It's a little difficult to see, but it says points won. What in the world? There we go. Points won. In order to determine who would be the MVP of the league. Now you can see there's actually a column next to it saying points max, meaning that would be the maximum number of votes they could have received, or points they could have received via the board account. If someone were to receive that grand total of 1,010 points, then they would be a unanimous choice. But this page doesn't tell me the individual vote breakdown, which is sad. I wish they did, but that's just one example of it. All right, again, cut and paste job. These numbers are a little bit off, but I'm looking down at number 16 and 17 on that same page. This problem now wants to go the route of plurality with elimination. The Professional Surfing Association Executive Committee is having an election to choose the location of the next surfing tournament. The choices are places that I probably am not going to pronounce very well. Let's see. Ano Nuevo, I did pretty okay there. Bonsai Pipeline, Cloud Break, Dungeons. They are the candidates A, B, C, D, respectively. The preference schedule for the committee's election is shown below. I says below, but it's really to the side. So let's take a look at this real quick. Just for the sake of argument, I just kind of want to think about this for myself. There are 21 plus 6, 27 people voting. There are 27 people voting in this preference schedule, meaning that if you were to be the winner for 27 votes, you would need 14. You would need at least 14 to be a winner, or I'm sorry, to be a majority. But if we take a quick peek at this, candidate A has 12, candidate B has 11, candidate C is 4, candidate D is 0 first place votes, so there's no majority. But what they want is plurality with elimination. Right off the bat, plurality, A, Ano Nuevo in California, A has a plurality, but this is plurality with elimination. With elimination. If somebody had a majority, the vote would be done. If somebody had a majority, we'd be done right now. But nobody has a majority. D has to be eliminated first. In fact, at the bottom of the table, I'm just going to go D eliminated. Just like that, boom, because D's gone. Now, I'll cross out D here, I'll cross out D, I'll cross out D, I'll cross out D, I'll cross out D. D is gone from this vote. D had 0 first place votes. Well, who goes next? C is eliminated next. C is eliminated next because C has the lowest number of first place votes. So C is eliminated next, but those votes have to be inherited by someone. So when C is eliminated, A inherits those votes. Now, all of a sudden, A has 16 votes. When C was eliminated, A inherited those votes and went over the threshold that was needed to get a majority. In the end, A now has 16 and B is stuck at 11. This is how we can determine the winner from plurality with elimination. Año nuevo. This probably should be a tilde there or something like that. I'm just going to put it for the fun of it. With plurality with elimination, again, you can't forget candidate D. Even though D had 0 first place votes, you did have to officially eliminate candidate D. Some people do get lost by that. But then, lowest number of first place votes, eliminate, someone inherits those votes. And then we go from there. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay, next page. Ta-da! Here we go. I am on the third page. Here we go. The third page at the top. Again, these questions are numbered weirdly. Again, my objective is to be able to knock out this set of review problems in preparation for Thursday, where we will do a different set in preparation for our final on Monday. 17 members of a small Iowa precinct are preparing for the Iowa caucuses held in January. The candidates running for president are A, B, C, and D. The results of a straw poll. Now, a straw poll, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to stop right there with the straw poll. A straw poll is an unofficial vote. It's just basically someone going around and being like, okay, who are you going to vote for? Hey, who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? And everyone kind of, I'm going to vote for this person. I'm going to vote for that person. It's a straw poll, basically. It's not official. It's not really random. It's not random at all because they're just literally asking the 17 members, like, hey, who are you going to vote for? The results of the straw poll taken prior to the official vote are given in the following preference schedule. So this is the straw poll result. Find the winner of the straw poll under plurality with elimination. Okay. D is clearly gone first. Goodbye, D. There are 17 candidates. You need 8? No, you need 9. Yeah, you need 9 votes to win that. Yeah, 8 won't do it. You need 9 votes to win. So let's see where everybody's at. A is at 6. B is at 5. C is at 6. So B is eliminated next. B is eliminated next with the lowest number of first place votes. Goodbye, B. Goodbye, B. Goodbye, B. Goodbye, B. So C gets those votes. C gets those votes and jumps up to 11. C is now at 11. A is now still at 6. C ends up being the winner. Who was the... some of the questions are already right there. There we go. Well, it says to find the winner using plurality with elimination. C wins. Yay. How many first place votes are needed for a majority? We talked about that. There should be 9 for a majority here because there are 17 votes. If you have 8, then you could still lose. Is there a majority candidate in round 1? No. If not, who was eliminated? Round 1, D was eliminated. Clearly. If there's elimination, write the preference schedule for round 2. Okay. Let's actually do that. We've already technically done this, but I want to do it again. So it should be A, B, C, B, C, A, C, A, B, A, C, B. That is the new preference schedule once D is eliminated, which clearly D didn't affect any of the first place votes. Well, let's just see what happens. Is there a majority candidate in round 2? No. If not, who is eliminated? B is eliminated. It's literally what we did. So if there is elimination, please write the preference schedule for round 3. All right. Then it should be AC, CA, CA, AC. Who is the winner of the straw poll? C wins. That's what we ended up doing before with the original preference schedule. Weird. Plurality with elimination, like I said, one of the more famous examples is how they select the Olympic city. Now, obviously, the Olympics technically haven't happened yet. Oh, let me go back here. Come back. Hey, are the Olympics happening this year? Does anybody know? Do you know when? Okay. So here's the bidding process for the 2020 elections. The bidding process actually originally took place between 2011 and 2013. So that's how far in advance they actually selected this thing. They have like a whole timeline here and stuff like that. And there were actually 5 main candidates here. 5 main candidates from Turkey, Japan, Azerbaijan. I can't pronounce that. Qatar, who I think Qatar is getting like a World Cup or something like that, and then Spain. And then they graded them based on like all of these like different things and stuff like that. And then there was a vote. And then after the first round of the vote, you can see up here, I'll zoom in a little bit. Here we go. Come on. After the first round of the vote, you can see that clearly Japan had the most first place votes, and there was actually a tie between Turkey and Spain. Oh, okay. So there had to be like a little bit of a runoff there because typically there would be one candidate being eliminated and then they would vote again on a second round candidate, and some people would have the option of changing their minds. That doesn't happen in real life. So they voted on just Turkey and Spain and they eliminated Spain clearly. And then, Turkey went on to go against Japan, and then what ended up happening was Japan won, and that's how Japan became the host city for this Olympics, this crazy Olympics. Let me actually go back because it'll probably be right here when it will happen, if it'll happen. Oh, there you go. It's supposed to start July 23rd. It's supposed to start July 23rd. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I heard Japan kind of hit like a weird thing. I don't know with the COVID. Los Angeles in 2028. Let me look at that bidding process. Oh wow, they did the bids for the 24 and 28 Olympics back to back. I see how that is. Where's the votes? I want the votes. Wow, that's a lot of candidates. Oh, they're not giving me the votes. Forget them. They're not my friends anymore. Okay, back to this. Click. Next page. I am on the page that says dissatisfied with the results of the IRV method. The team, by the way, the IRV, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to zoom in right there. IRV stands for instant runoff vote. It's not really... what's the word I'm looking for? It's not really like a vocabulary word or anything like that. That's just plurality with elimination. That's all that it is. It's plurality with elimination. IRV, instant runoff voting. Dissatisfied with the results of the instant runoff voting method, the team executives decide to use the method of pairwise comparison to determine their pick, or their first pick, I should say. The preference schedule is reprinted below, which is literally right here to the side. Using the method of pairwise comparison, how many points does each candidate receive? Now, this is going to be a little tricky. I'm going to move this right here, and I'm going to do this along with you because there's no table to kind of organize this stuff. But I want to do pairwise comparison and show you how this thing can be done in a swift manner. So you don't do the minimum amount of writing. There are 5 candidates, so we have to compare every pairwise situation. First, let me figure this out. How many total people are voting? We've got 8 and 12, 13, 14, 18, 22. There are 22 people voting. 22 people voting. 11 would be half, but 11 is not a majority. 12 is a majority. You need 12 to win. If it is an 11 to 11 tie, then you split the point. If it's an 11 to 11 tie, then you split the point half and half. Similar thing in the World Cup of soccer, where if they end up ending the game in a draw, they end up splitting the points, or they get lesser points. I mean, they get 1 point. That's right. It's like 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Whatever. That's their rules. We're splitting it half and half. So let me do AVB. Now, again, in order to do this, you just need 12 to win. So let me just count up. Let me just count up all the times that A beats B. A beats B here, 2. Not here, not here, not here. A beats B here for a total of 3. A beats B here for a total of 7. Not here. So A would have 7. There are 22 votes. B would win 15. I'm trying to do it in the simplest way possible without having to do a lot of calculations. I'm doing it kind of a shortcutish kind of way. That's AVB. AVC. Let's see. A would win. A would win. That's 8. A would win. That's 12. A would lose. A would lose. A would win. That's 16. A would lose. A would have 16. I don't even have to worry about counting up the other ones. C would have 6. A would win that one. Now, clearly, A lost the first one, won the second one. No Condorcet candidate yet, but I got to do AVD. AVD. A would win. That's 2, 8, 12, 13. There, it's right there. They already did it. They already did it. I'm not even going to bother counting up the rest. A would win that one. I'm just going to shortcut it. It's AVE. Let's see. Win, win, win. That's 12. Win, that's 13. A would win. I did all of A's. Let's do B, BVC. Let's see. B loses. B wins, B wins. It's 10. So majority there. That's cool. There's 10 right there. Loss, 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 loss. Oh, wow. So B only won 10 of those votes. So clearly C is going to win in that head-to-head matchup. This is how, again, you can do a little bit of a shortcut, so you don't have to like spend a million years calculating the individual head-to-head matchups. You just kind of figure it out shorthand based on the way that the preference schedule will set up. Now, because B automatically has these first place votes, I can give B 10 votes in any head-to-head matchup, but I got to see if B can win any more than 10, because B would have to have 13 to have a majority. BVD. D wins. Oh, here we go. 11. Loss, loss, loss. Only got 11. D wins. Because if B got 11, then D would have gotten 13. Or was it 13? I can't remember how many votes there are. How many total votes were there again? 18, 19, 20, 22. Yeah, that's right. They'd have gotten 13. BVE. B has 10. There's another win here that's 12. There's another win here that's 13. You just need 13 to get a majority. Let's see. CVD, we're almost there. C automatically has these two as a win, but that's just 2 votes. I'll just do it like this. A loss to D, 6, a loss, 7, 8, a loss, 12. It's going to be a 12 to 12 tie. It's a split. That's a split. That's half and half. CVE. See, a win, that's 8. A loss, a win, that's 10. A loss, that's 10, so E wins. If C had 10, then E would have 12. 12? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 22. Yeah, you need 12. You need 12 to win. That's right. Anyhow, let's see. CE. D versus E. I think that's the last one. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think this is the last one. DE. Let's see. D wins. D wins. D wins. D wins. D wins. D wins. E wins that last one. D is clearly going to win. Interesting. So, in terms of the totals, let me go back to my paper. Pairwise comparison does take a little bit of time. It does. Let's see who gets the majority here now. A won 1, 2, 3 of those matchups, so you get 3 points. Good for them. B won 1, 2 of those matchups. Okay. C won 1 1/2 of those matchups. D won 1, 2.5 of those matchups. And E won 1 of those matchups. So who's going to be the team's first pick? It's got to be candidate A. It's got to be candidate A. Candidate A was not the Condorcet candidate. Candidate A was not the Condorcet candidate, but did have more points in head-to-head matchups. That's how that thing would go. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Okay. Now, I'm going to bypass this real quick. I'm going to talk a little bit about weighted voting systems, and then we'll kind of wrap up here because, like I said, I only wanted to go to 8:20. I only wanted to go to 8:20 to allow you the rest of the time to kind of do what you needed to do, especially since we do have a quiz due tomorrow. The weighted voting system, and there's a whole bunch of numbers here, describes the system used by the European Union Council of Ministers prior to 2004. First of all, this first number here represents the quota. This first number up top here represents the quota, meaning the minimum number of votes needed in order to pass a measure or a proposal or whatever. The rest of these numbers represent individual players and the weight that their vote actually has, meaning players 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have 10 votes amongst themselves each. Player 5 is 8. These players all have 5. These players have 4. These players have 3. This last player only has 2. It says to find the total number of players on the council. Well, not counting the 62, because the 62, again, is the quota, there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There would be 15 players on that council. Zoom out a little. Find the total number of votes. Boom, 87. And that just takes, again, a matter of adding up the weights of those votes. There are 87 total votes available. Again, 62 being the quota. Find the weight of player 6. Well, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Player 6 has a weight of 5 votes. Usually you list them in that particular order, player 1, player 2, etc. Find the minimum percentage of votes needed to pass a motion round to the next whole percent. Well, if there are 62 votes needed out of 87 total votes, you can see the percentage right there, but they want you to round to the next whole percent, meaning 72%. Yes, technically it would round down to 71, but they wanted you to round to the next whole percent. That would be 72% right there. Then they ask you to consider the weighted voting system here, where Q is unknown. Q, the quota, is unknown. You don't know what Q is. The quota, according to a weighted voting system, the quota has to be more than 50% of the votes available. A quota has to be more than 50%. It has to be. According to this, if I were to add up those numbers, 6, 4, 3, 3, 2, and 2, that gives me 20 total votes. Meaning, the quota has to be at a bare minimum 11. Because if you had 10, that would be 50-50. And that's not going to fly. It has to be more than 50% in a weighted voting system. What is the largest value that the quota could take? Well, the largest value that it could be is 20. And that would be if the quota were a unanimous decision. If you required a unanimous decision in order to pass anything, then you would need every vote voting one way. Part C, using some of your mathematical vocabulary from algebra, really. What is the value of the quota if at least 3/4? At least 3/4 of the votes are required to pass a motion. Well, I take 3/4, which is 0.75, and multiply it by 20, that's 15. If you need at least 3/4 of the votes required to pass a motion, then you need 15 votes in order to pass it. Because that would be exactly 75%. But then, part D, more than. What if you needed more than 75%? What if you needed more than 3/4? Well, 16 votes would then be needed. It really depends on what your organization agrees upon. Everyone has to agree upon the rules that are being voted upon. And then if they agree that has to be more than 3/4, then this is the language that takes place. Let's see what we get here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do on the back, we're going to do this dictator veto dummy thing. And I'm going to save number 3, the bottom part of this, the Banzhaf power distribution. I'm going to save that for Thursday. I'll save that for Thursday. But let's knock out this dictator veto power dummy thing. A dictator is just basically they can vote anything up or down on their own. Nobody has any other say except for the one person. In part A of this particular problem, player 1 is a dictator. Even though the other players do have some votes, player 1 is absolutely a dictator because, well, the quota is exactly equal to the dictator's power. The dictator has 95 votes at their disposal. And because of that, they can pass whatever they want or not pass whatever they want. Player 1's clearly a dictator. In that case, technically, player 1 also has veto power. Technically. But that's not really what the definition says. The definition isn't really taking into account what a dictator is. So you could say player 1, but I'm going to put technically. It's a weird situation. A dictator technically always has veto power, but if you have veto power, that does not automatically make you a dictator. And who are the dummies here? Well, clearly players 2, 3, and 4 are dummies. You are a dummy if your vote never matters. You are a dummy voter if your vote never matters. Has no consequence whatsoever passing or failing a resolution. Then I go to part B. Now in part B, there are no dictators. In part B, there are no dictators because now nobody has by themselves the number of votes to meet the quota. Nobody. Nobody. No one is a dictator here. But in terms of veto power, let's do it like this. Can players 2, 3, and 4 pass something on their own? No, they can't. Players 2, 3, and 4, I just added them up, cannot meet the quota. Player 1 has veto power. Let me check player 2. Maybe, does player 2 have veto power? No, player 2 does not have veto power. The reason how I figured that out, I'll move this up a little bit. The reason how I figured that out, here's players 1, 3, and 4. 1, 3, and 4 can pass something on their own. You have veto power if your votes would make a difference between passing and failing. If everybody voted for something and they still couldn't pass it without you, you have veto power. Player 1 has veto power by definition. Are there any dummies here? Well, now hold on. Don't just automatically label people dummies. In order to determine whether or not somebody is a dummy in this situation, you need to see whether or not they're ever needed, or if there's ever a possibility where you could bring them in to get over that threshold of the quota. So for example, in this case right here, I did 2, 3, and 4. They can't get over the quota without player 1. They have veto power. But player 1 can't get over the quota by themselves. If they had player 2, they would do it. If they had player 3, they would do it. If they had player 1, actually, yeah, 1 and 3 can do it by themselves. Will player 4 ever be needed? Let's see, hold on. I'm trying to do a situation here. Nope, player 4 can't do it. Player 4 seems like the dummy. Every winning coalition doesn't need player 4. They don't need player 4. They could use player 4 to vote with it, but player 4 will never actually help them get over that quota. Player 4 is a dummy. In part C, there are no dictators. Again, dictator is very easy to determine. Basically, does the number of votes that they have, does their weight exceed the quota or meet the quota? Let's talk about veto power then. I added up everybody but player 1. I added up everybody but player 1. Does not meet the quota. I added up everybody but player 2. Now look at this, is actually very interesting. I added up everybody but player 2. Did not meet the quota. I'm going to add up everybody but player 3. Yeah, it meets the quota. Players 1 and 2. Player 1 and 2 have veto power. Ms. Markey, how do you determine that? I add up everybody but that player. Here's not using player 1. Doesn't meet the quota. Here's everybody not using player 2. Doesn't meet the quota. Because of that, they have veto power. But if I use everybody but player 3, oh yeah, that meets the quota. That's fine. And then pretty much no one else has veto power. The question then becomes, are there any dummies? Now, this one's a little bit more difficult to determine because of the sheer number of players. But because of that veto power, that does help us to kind of figure out this situation. Let me do, yeah, they can't do that. 32 and 16. 32 and 16, that's not us. 32 and 16 meet the quota by themselves. Oh, that's really interesting. Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, players 1 and 2 meet the quota by themselves. They don't need the rest of the players. If player 2 doesn't vote for it, then player 1 can't get there with the rest of the players. And if player 1 doesn't vote for it, then they can't get there without the rest of the players. But the only other winning coalition that I can really find that has a minimum number of players is players 1 and 2. Man, that means everyone else is actually a dummy here. That's crazy. That doesn't always happen. That does not always happen. Basically, it's just try to find winning coalitions that meet the quota. But yeah, they don't need players 3, 4, and 5. The only winning coalitions that actually work are when players 1 and 2 vote together. And because if they vote together, they don't need anybody else. The rest of them are dummies. Oh, that's funny. Cool. I'm going to do the Banzaf thing next time with the second half of this review. I'm going to do the Banzaf thing next time. And we'll go through the Banzaf power distribution and kind of wrap that up there. So here's my instructions for all of you. The time is just about 8:20. The time is just about 8:20. Oh, sorry. You do have a quizzes due tomorrow that you have 3 opportunities to take, 3 chances. I did that on purpose, and I made it due tomorrow specifically so I could remind you today. There are other things that you may owe me. In regards to work. So what I'm going to suggest is that you try to use this time appropriately. You try to use this time effectively. If you owe me something, you can work on that. If you want to get that quizzes done, you can work on that. If you have a question for me, of course, you can email me. I am going to leave the live chat open just in case I have to say anything of importance. But on Thursday, we will finish reviewing whatever we need to review. I'll have a different packet for you. And then, yeah, we're taking our final exam on Monday. Woo! Again, for the final exam, you have to be present during that time period because I'm only going to make the final exam available to you during that time period. You're going to knock that thing out, and then we'll go from there. Yay. Okay. To work. Oh, sweet. Cool. So Thursday, we will continue reviewing. Email me if you have any questions in regards to anything that we're doing. I can see the comments that you all left right there. That's great. And the bell's going to ring in approximately 5 or 6 seconds. So I'm going to sign off from here, and we'll see you Thursday. Yay! I did it. End stream.